have seen a disadvantage of classful addressing, correct? Because what happens in classful addressing, most of the address space is wasted. I hope you understood how those address space is wasted. Correct. So that classful addressing absolute long back means it has not been used since long in the market. Now everything what we use is a classless addressing. So let's see what is this classless addressing. Correct. This classless addressing is an IPv4 addressing architecture that uses the variable length subnet masking. Correct. So in this case, there is one solution which has come in 1993, which is a classless interdomain routing, which is also called as CIDR. Right. So this particular CIDR has introduced the concept of classless addressing. Correct. When this CIDR has come in 1993. So before that, or almost in that period, we were using a classful addressing. And as we have found many disadvantages of this classful addressing, so we have moved to this classless interdomain routing, that is CIDR addressing. Correct. Now in this classful in this classful addressing, what happens? The size of networks is fixed, right? क्लासफुल में हमने क्या देखा था कि नेटवर्क्स का साइज फिक्स था एंड ईच एड्रेस रेंज हैज अ डिफॉल्ट सबनेट मास्क था। आपको क्या सबनेट मास्क मैंने बताया था कि क्लास ए का सबनेट मास्क है 255.0.0.0, क्लास बी का कौन सा है 255.255.0.0 एंड क्लास सी का कौन सा था 255.255.255.0। करेक्ट। सो दीज आर हैविंग द फिक्स्ड subnet mask in classful addressing. Please remember this was in a classful addressing. In classless addressing, right, what we do, we do not have the default subnet mask. There it has the variable length subnet mask. Correct. And that's the reason we also called it as VLSM. What is this VLSM? Variable net subnet masking. So the CIDR with VLSM gives us a concept of subnetting. So using classless addressing and VLSM, addresses can be allocated much more efficiently. Correct. Why this is so? Because the network admins get to pick a network mask and in turn blocks of IP addresses that are of the right size are returned to that IP provider. Correct. So this is how the classless addressing is work. Correct. Now, how does this classless addressing works? Let's look into detail. So at high level, this classless addressing works by allowing IP addresses to be assigned arbitrarily network mask without respect to the class. Correct. So what does it mean? /8 255.0.0.0 /16 255.255.0.0 /24 is what 255.0 255.255.0. Now you would have understood ये /8 जो लिखा है मैंने या /16 जो लिखा है या /24 जो लिखा है, that represent the network part. Correct. So these networks mask can be assigned to any address that would traditionally be in a class A, B, C. Correct. तो ये क्या था? ये classful addressing related था. Correct. So now in our classless addressing, it is not tied to the /8, /16, /24. Correct. What does it do? If we need 500 IP addresses using subnet calculator, correct. So it gives us /23 block. Right. So what does it mean? See, whatever is the requirement, that much is given in this classless addressing. Now you can see from this image also. See /23 here. So what with /23, almost all IPs are used. With class B, 90% of IPs will be wasted. This is what is a crux of this classless addressing. Correct. Now, how does it is defined in IPv4 addressing? A block of addresses can be defined as x.y.z.t/n. So this xy.y.z.t defines one of the address and /n defines the mask. Okay. So let's go in detail of this. Yes. So in detail of this, now let's look into details why we are adopting for this classless addressing. As we have already said that they are variable length blocks, or we have this variable length mask for this classless addressing concept, right? So first reason for this is a classful addressing fail in providing the fair share of addresses to each organization. We have seen the example, correct? So in classful addressing, sometimes the addresses in the block were more than enough, and sometimes the addresses in the block were less than the required. Correct. And that's the reason we have the concept of this subnetting and supernetting in, uh, uh, that's the reason we have this concept in the classless addressing. Correct. Now, what was the reason too? So in 1990s, this internet service provider, an organization become famous to provide the internet access to mid-size organizations. Correct. Now, what happens in this? They shall commercial companies or even to an individual, right, who require the internet. Why the people require the internet? For email services and surfing to extract the information. So this is provided by internet service provider. Now this internet corporation for assigned names and numbers, that is ICANN, a global authority that assigns a large block of addresses to ISP, which it further subdivides to provide a required range of addresses to small commercial organization. Correct. So in 1996, a new architecture was introduced for distribution of addresses, namely classless addressing. The classless addressing provides the blocks of addresses of variable length. One can request for a block having one address, two address, four address, eight addresses, and so on. It means that the number of addresses that a customer can request should be the power of 2. So the classless addressing prevents the wastage of addresses. Correct? So then we have this CIDR notation. Correct. Now in this classful addressing, if the address is provided, then we can detect its class. Correct. Like in classful addressing, the addresses was divided into two parts, network ID and host ID. Fine. So in the same way, the classless addressing also divides IP addresses into two parts, prefix and suffix. Prefix defines the network ID, whereas suffix defines the host ID, and that is of the variable length. Classful addressing में क्या होता था? Network ID and host ID is a fixed length. In classless addressing, we again have this network ID and host ID concept, or network addresses and host addresses concepts, but that is in the form of prefix and suffix, and which is of a variable length. Say my prefix is n, then my suffix will be 32 minus n. Fine. So that is the crux of classless addressing. So addresses belonging to the same block persist the same prefix, whereas each host in the block has a different suffix. As in the classful address, the length of network ID depends on the class. Correct. Now let's see in more detail with the example. So length of prefix is added to the last address space by a slash. Understood all of you? So we were looking at that slash देखा था ना हमने? वो slash क्या था? That length of prefix is added to the last of the address separated by slash. This slash notation, and more formally it is known as a classless interdomain routing, which is my CIDR. Fine, it is a classless interdomain routing. Correct. So this is my classless addressing. So why we are going for classless addressing? Because in a classful addressing, there is a waste of huge IP addresses. So we are going for this classless addressing. Correct? So today we will stop here and we'll see the example in our next lecture.